I had just stepped out of the bank, clutching a folder of paperwork against my chest, when the sound of rattling metal reached my ears. It wasn't unusual in that part of the city: bottle collectors, scrap searchers, the usual struggles of forgotten lives. But something about that particular sound made me turn my head. If this story touched your heart, friends, please like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more touching stories. Thank you for being here. There, near the alley behind the pharmacy, was a man hunched over a dumpster, picking through cans and plastic with hands so thin they looked like twigs. His shirt, once white perhaps, was now a tapestry of stains. His hair hung in messy gray clumps. His shoes were torn at the tip, but none of that is what froze me. It was the way he moved, slow, lopsided, as if every step carried years of exhaustion. My heart slammed into my ribs. No, it couldn't be. Not him, not after everything. But then he turned slightly, light landing on the side of his face, and the world around me simply stopped. It was him, the man I had married at 28, the man who used to leave notes on my pillow, the man who walked out of our home without a full sentence of explanation and vanished for more than a decade. Thaddeus. I felt the ground tilt beneath my feet. The people around me continued with their errands, unaware that the past had just walked out of its grave and stood 10 steps away from me, rummaging through trash. 1,000 memories slammed into me at once. Our small kitchen, our late-night conversations, our arguments, the cold letter he left on the table the morning he disappeared. Forgive me, it's for the best. That was all. No why, no goodbye, just a door closing that never opened again. I had built my anger around that note, brick by brick, for years. I blamed him for the debts, the humiliation, the lonely nights, for turning me into a woman who swept other people's floors just to survive. Now I was staring at the same man, only hollowed out, brittle, worn like an abandoned coat. My legs moved before my mind did. I walked toward him, each step heavy as if wading through water. When I reached the edge of the dumpster, he sensed someone behind him. He lifted his face, and in that instant, he recognized me. His eyes widened, panic flaring in them. He stumbled backward like he had seen a ghost. "Don't," he muttered, avoiding my gaze. "Please, don't look at me like this." But my voice betrayed me. It cracked like thin glass. "Thaddeus? Why? What happened to you?" He kept his head bowed, shoulders trembling. "You shouldn't have seen me," he whispered. "I tried so hard to keep you away from this." "From what?" My voice shook despite my effort to stay composed. "You left me drowning in questions for years. You owe me the truth." He opened his mouth, closed it again, then finally whispered words so soft I almost didn't hear them. "I didn't disappear because of you. I disappeared to protect you." My breath caught. Protect me? From what? From whom? Before I could ask, his knees buckled. He collapsed, falling toward the pavement. I lunged forward, catching him just before his head hit the ground. And that's when I realized, whatever truth he carried, it wasn't just painful, it was dangerous. Because the moment he whispered, "They're still watching," I understood that finding him wasn't fate. It was a warning. I held his limp body in my arms as the world around us blurred into noise. Cars passing, people staring, someone shouting to call an ambulance. His skin felt cold, his breath faint and irregular. The shock of seeing him again had been overwhelming, but watching him collapse pressed a new kind of fear into my chest, the fear that I had found him only to lose him again minutes later. When the paramedics arrived, they lifted him into the stretcher with practiced urgency.
One of them asked if I was family. I hesitated for half a heartbeat before whispering, I'm someone who needs to stay with him. That was enough for them to let me climb into the ambulance. Inside, everything smelled like medicine and metal. The paramedic checked his pulse, inserted an IV, and spoke in a calm tone that didn't match the worry in his eyes. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, probably hasn't eaten a proper meal in days, he murmured. I stared at Thaddeus's face, sunken and pale, nothing like the proud man who once walked beside me. My throat tightened painfully. How had it come to this? How had he fallen so far while I lived years blaming him? When the nurse eventually approached me, she asked, "Are you the closest contact?" I replied, my voice firmer this time. It didn't matter that we were divorced. It didn't matter that he had vanished. In that moment, no one else in the world was closer to him than I was. She'll be moved to observation once stabilized, but he's very weak. Years of neglect, it appears. Years. Plural. The realization made my stomach twist. When I was finally allowed into his room, he lay connected to tubes and monitors, his chest rising unevenly. He looked frail, almost unrecognizable, but his eyes fluttered open when he heard my steps. "Why did you come?" he whispered, barely audible. I pulled a chair close. "Because you collapsed into my arms on a sidewalk. What kind of question is that, Thaddeus?" His lips curved into a sad, ghost-like smile. "You shouldn't be near me. You weren't supposed to ever see me again." "Stop talking in riddles," I snapped, my voice cracking. "Tell me what you meant earlier. Protect me from what?" He shut his eyes as if bracing himself against a memory too heavy to carry. "If they find out I spoke to you, you'll be in danger. You have no idea what these people are capable of." My heart lurched. "Who's watching you?" He swallowed painfully. "People who don't forgive mistakes. People who bury their problems, sometimes literally." A chill slid down my spine. "Thaddeus, what did you get yourself into?" His hand trembled as he reached weakly toward mine. I took it. "It wasn't what I got into, it's what they dragged me into. I tried to resist once, just once, and they showed me something that made resistance impossible." "What did they show you?" He looked straight into my eyes then, eyes full of years of fear, guilt, and something far worse. "You," he whispered. My breath caught. "Me? What does that even mean?" He squeezed my hand with the little strength he had left. "You were the leverage, the threat, the bargaining chip that forced me to throw my life away." I froze. Every bone in my body turned cold. "What did they want from you?" His answer cracked the air like thunder. "They wanted me gone, and if I didn't disappear, they promised they would make you disappear instead." My heart hammered against my ribs. His disappearance, my years of ruin, his life in hiding, all of it suddenly twisted into a dark shape that made terrible sense. But this was only the edge of the truth. Because when he said, "I didn't leave to hurt you, I left to keep you alive," I realized the real story was only beginning and someone out there still wanted it buried. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. His words circled my mind like a storm with no center. He didn't leave to betray me. He left because someone threatened my life. The realization was heavy. Too heavy to fit into one breath. Too heavy to match the story I had carried for years. I pulled the chair closer. "Thaddeus, start from the beginning," I whispered. "All of it. No holding back this time." He stared at the ceiling, his chest rising unevenly. "You think I wanted to disappear?" he said, voice barely above a murmur. "You think I wanted to watch you from the shadows, knowing you hated me? I had no choice. They made sure of it." "Who are they?" I pressed, leaning forward. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. People tied to a project at the firm. Men who controlled money, contracts, favors. Powerful men. The kind no one questions. The kind newspapers avoid. Corruption? That word is too small, he breathed. This wasn't just embezzlement or bribery. It was a machine, and I was inside it without even realizing. He explained how it started with a major construction project. He was the technical head, nothing more. But the deeper the project went, the more he noticed inconsistencies. Inflated invoices, non-existent contractors, funds flowing into companies that existed only on paper, signatures that didn't match the files he kept. I thought reporting it was the right thing to do. I was foolish. I walked directly into the trap. I listened in stillness, every muscle tense. They summoned me, a group of them. They had all the falsified documents ready, documents with my signature forged on them. It looked like I was the mastermind. And then they showed me something worse. What? My voice trembled. He turned toward me, his eyes full of the kind of pain that ages a man. You leaving our building. Another of you entering your workplace. One of you at the bus stop. My heart stuttered. They were watching me? He whispered. Every move. They wanted me to know exactly what they could take away. My stomach twisted. For years I had assumed the shadows following me back then were paranoia, grief, or stress. But now those memories returned in horrifying clarity. The parked car that never left the street for a week, the man who seemed to always be in line behind me at the grocery store, the strange feeling of being observed. And you believed they'd hurt me? I asked softly. His eyes flickered with a painful truth. They killed others who resisted. Engineers, accountants, people who tried to expose them. Accidents, they called them. He paused, breath shaking. I couldn't let you be next. So you took the fall, I whispered. Yes, I accepted blame for everything they fabricated. They stripped my accounts, froze our assets, took the house, even arranged the papers that hit you after I left. They needed our total destruction to look real. And the letter you left me? His face twisted with regret. It was the hardest thing I ever wrote, but if I had said anything more, you might have looked for me. And if you had looked for me, they would have found you. Tears blurred my vision, but I blinked them away. You let me hate you for years. He said, hate kept you safe. Love would have brought you closer, and closer meant danger. Silence filled the room, thick with truths that changed everything I believed about my past. I finally whispered, Thaddeus, why tell me this now? He hesitated, then spoke words that sent a cold shiver down my spine. Because they know I resurfaced. They know I met you. And once they realize I talked. He inhaled sharply, fear flickering across his features. They won't come for me this time. They'll come for you. And before I could ask anything else, a doctor hurried in with a warning that proved the danger wasn't distant, it was already inside the hospital. The door swung open with a sharp click, making both of us startle. A doctor stepped in, but his expression wasn't the neutral mask medical staff usually wore. He looked tense, eyes darting toward the hallway before settling on Thaddeus. I need to check his vitals, he said, but there was something brittle in his tone that made me instantly suspicious. I moved aside, watching carefully as he examined Thaddeus. His hands moved efficiently, but his voice was quieter than before. He's stable for now, but very weak. You should stay cautious. Cautious? It wasn't a word doctors usually used. He leaned closer to me as he adjusted a monitor. Please step outside for a moment, he said softly. Just you. My heartbeat quickened. Why? His eyes flicked again to the hallway before returning to mine. Because there are people asking about your husband who shouldn't be. A chill crept down my spine. I followed him out of the room, leaving the door slightly ajar so I could still see Thaddeus. The doctor lowered his voice even further. In the last hour, 3 men came asking for him. None are registered as relatives, no badges, no medical inquiries. They only asked where his room was. My blood ran cold. Were they police? He shook his head firmly. No. And when I asked for identification, they left without answering. My stomach tightened. The danger Thaddeus warned me about wasn't hypothetical. It was here, breathing the same sterile air, walking the same polished floors. Should we call security? I whispered. It won't matter, the doctor murmured. Hospitals are open spaces. Too many entrances, too many people. Just be alert. He straightened as if the conversation had never happened and walked away. I returned to the room, my pulse pounding in my ears. Thaddeus's eyes met mine instantly. They're here, aren't they? He whispered. Yes, I replied, closing the door behind me. 3 men. The doctor said they were asking for you. He shut his eyes, his breath trembling. They'll try to make it look like a medical complication or an accident. That's how they operate. Quietly, cleanly. Not while I'm here, I snapped, surprising myself with the force of my voice. He opened his eyes again, looking at me with a mix of fear and gratitude. You shouldn't be involved in this, Verena. I ruined your life once. I won't let them ruin it again. You didn't ruin anything, I replied softly. You sacrificed everything, and now you're alone in a battle you shouldn't have fought by yourself. My words made his throat tighten. If you knew the whole story, he whispered. I want to know it. He hesitated, his gaze drifting to the window, as if expecting a shadow to appear there too. Before I vanished, I hid something they would kill for. My breath caught. What? A box, metal, buried behind the old workshop where I used to work. Everything is inside. Real contracts, forged documents, the money trail, names, proof. The air inside the room shifted. Proof. Proof that could destroy the men hunting him? Proof that might explain everything I lost? Why didn't you use it? He let out a hollow laugh that ended in a cough. Because keeping it hidden kept you alive. If they thought I destroyed the evidence, they had no reason to come after you. I swallowed hard. My entire life had been shaped by lies and shadows I never even saw. Where exactly is it? I whispered. Behind the second shelving unit, loose bricks. You'll find the latch. You want me to get it? No, he said immediately, fear flaring in his eyes. If they see you anywhere near that place. A sudden noise in the hallway cut him off. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, stopping right outside the door. We both froze. Someone was standing there, listening. And when the doorknob began to turn, I realized the past wasn't hunting us anymore. It had already caught up. The doorknob twitched, as if someone on the other side was testing how quietly it could turn. My body went rigid, every nerve tightening. Thaddeus's breath hitched. For a split second, neither of us moved. The world shrank down to that silver knob and the shadow beneath the door. Then, footsteps. Not approaching, leaving. Slow at first, then fading down the hall. Only when the sound disappeared entirely did I let out the breath I'd been holding. Thaddeus's voice was a ragged whisper. You see, they're already circling. They don't need to break the door down. They just need a moment when your back is turned. I placed a shaky hand on his arm. We're not going to sit here waiting for them to act, I said quietly. If everything depends on that box you hid, then we need it. His eyes widened in fear. No, if they catch you near that workshop, if they even suspect you know something, you'll be the next to vanish. And if I don't go, they'll eliminate you before sunrise and come after me anyway. At least this gives us a chance. He swallowed, fighting the weakness in his body. "I can't lose you," he said, voice trembling. "Not after everything I endured to keep you alive." I squeezed his hand. "You didn't lose me. You just didn't know I was still here." Silence settled between us, heavy, full of everything we couldn't say. Finally, he nodded, defeated by the truth. "If you're going, you have to follow exactly what I tell you." I leaned closer, committing every detail to memory as he described the old workshop on the city's industrial edge, the place where he used to repair equipment years ago. It had long since been abandoned, replaced by a newer facility across town. The back storage room, second shelf, loose bricks behind a rusted beam, a metal latch, a box no bigger than a briefcase, wrapped in old canvas. That box, he said, contains the entire skeleton of their operation. Names, dates, signatures, illegal transfers, photos. Everything they used to take me down. Everything they didn't want the world to see. "Why didn't you destroy it?" I asked softly. His answer was quiet but firm. "Because if one day you ever needed the truth, I wanted it to exist." My throat tightened. "You saved my life, but you let me drown." He nodded heavily. "It was the only way to keep them from using you. If you had known anything, even by accident, it would have put a target on your back." I looked at him, not as the man who vanished or the man who ruined my life, but as a man who sacrificed everything and lived his own funeral while still breathing. "Rest," I said gently. "I'll be back." Before leaving, I pressed the call button for the nurse. I couldn't risk him being alone. Not tonight. Not when danger was pacing the halls. I walked down the hospital corridor with my heart pounding so loudly I felt it in my ears. Every unfamiliar face made me flinch. The elevator seemed too slow, the lobby too bright, the night outside too quiet. But I kept moving because fear was no longer enough to stop me. The truth had already cost us a lifetime. It wouldn't cost us another. I called a taxi and gave the driver the address of the old industrial zone. The city's lights blurred past the window, while my pulse kept counting down a clock I couldn't see. As the taxi turned down the deserted road leading to the abandoned workshop, an unsettling realization hit me. We weren't the only ones racing toward the past, because parked outside the workshop, beneath a flickering streetlight, was a dark sedan, and someone inside it was waiting. The taxi slowed to a crawl as we approached the industrial block. The old workshop stood like a wounded beast, its cracked windows staring blankly, its rusted panels peeling away like dead skin. Streetlights in the area flickered weakly, making the shadows along the buildings stretch unnaturally long. But it wasn't the workshop that froze my breath. It was the black sedan parked across from it, engine idling, headlights off. "Ma'am," the driver murmured, sensing my tension. "You want me to wait?" "No," I whispered. "Drive on, just a little." He nodded and slowly passed the sedan. From the corner of my eye, I saw movement. Someone sitting inside, their silhouette rigid and alert. They weren't looking at us, but at the building, watching it like a hunter watching a burrow. The taxi continued down the street. At the next corner, I paid the driver and told him I'd walk. As he drove away, I stepped into the darkness, pressing my back to the wall of a shuttered factory. I needed to circle around, unseen. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. My pulse hammered against my ribs as I moved through the narrow alley behind the workshop. The gravel crunched under my shoes, every sound amplified in the quiet night. A cat darted across my path, making me flinch violently. When I reached the back entrance, I paused. The door was unlocked. Not broken, not forced. Unlocked. That meant someone had been inside recently, maybe minutes ago. I hesitated, then whispered to myself, "You came this far." Pushing the door open, I stepped into a cavern of darkness. My phone's flashlight cast a narrow cone of pale light, revealing looming shelves, dust-covered tools, and spiderwebs shivering in the draft. The air was cold, too cold for a sealed building. I forced myself forward until I reached the storage room Thaddeus described. The shelves were still there, crooked metal frames lined with boxes, broken parts, and years of forgotten repairs. I counted them carefully. 1, 2, the second shelf. I crouched, running my fingers along the concrete wall behind it. Smooth, then rough, then there, a small gap between bricks. My breath caught. I pried at the loose brick, hands trembling. It came free more easily than expected, revealing a narrow recess. Inside, wrapped in old canvas, was a metal box. I stared at it, my heart pounding. This was the truth that had cost us everything. I reached in, gripping the cold metal tightly, pulling it free, when a soft noise behind me froze my blood. A footstep. I spun around, flashlight trembling in my hand. Nothing. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to breathe. My mind must be playing tricks on me. I pulled the canvas tighter around the box and slipped it into my bag. Another noise. Closer this time. A long, slow inhale that didn't belong to me. I turned sharply, phone shaking. "Who's there?" Silence. No answer. No movement. But I knew. Someone was in the workshop. Someone who hadn't come for nostalgia or abandoned tools. Without wasting another second, I killed the flashlight and slipped toward the back exit, bag clutched to my chest. My breath sounded too loud in the dark, my heartbeat too obvious. I reached the door. It creaked slightly as I opened it. I stepped into the cold night air, barely daring to breathe. Then I saw it. The black sedan was no longer across the street. It was parked right behind the building, and the driver's door was open. And before I could run, a low voice behind me said, "Leave the bag, or you won't leave this street." Leave the bag, or you won't leave this street. The voice was low, steady, and terrifyingly close. My grip tightened around the strap of my bag. Sweat prickled at the back of my neck. I didn't dare turn around. Not yet. The cold air carried the smell of gasoline from the idling sedan, mixed with the metallic scent of fear rising from my own skin. Slowly, I drew in a breath. "Who are you?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Someone cleaning up loose ends," the man said. His footsteps crunched lightly across the gravel. "We've been patient with him for years, but now he's talking. And you're becoming a problem." A chill raced down my spine. They knew. They had been watching. They followed me here. I took a step forward, inching toward the side of the building where the shadows were thicker. He let out a dry laugh. "If you run, it'll only make things worse." I turned my head, slowly, just enough to glimpse the figure behind me. He was tall, wearing a dark coat, face obscured in the dim light, but the glint of metal in his hand told me everything. A gun. My chest tightened. "If you shoot me, people will hear." "No one comes here at night," he murmured. "And even if someone did, accidents happen. People get robbed, assaulted, disappear." He stepped closer. I stepped back. The distance between us was shrinking fast. Think. My eyes darted to the workshop door. Too far. The alley? Too narrow. The abandoned loading platform? Maybe. "I'm giving you one chance. Drop the bag." My breath shook. I loosened my shoulders just enough to make it look like I was giving in. I lifted the bag slowly, then hurled it toward the opposite end of the yard. He cursed, instinctively glancing at it, and I ran. My legs burned as I sprinted toward the loading platform. Gravel flew under my shoes. Behind me, he shouted, and the sharp echo of footsteps chased me like a predator. A gunshot cracked through the night. I ducked, heart slamming, as the bullet hit the metal siding of the workshop. Sparks flew, the noise ricocheted through the emptiness. I jumped onto the platform, nearly tripping, and scrambled behind an old forklift. My breath came fast, uneven. Footsteps approached again. Slow now, deliberate. You're making this messy. Just give up. You don't even know what you're holding. I peeked around the forklift. He was scanning the shadows, moving with confidence. He'd done this before. I reached into my jacket pocket, searching desperately for something, anything. My fingers closed around my phone. Not a weapon, but maybe a distraction. I slid it behind a stack of crates and set the flashlight on. The beam shot out, bright and sharp, pointing toward the opposite side of the yard. The man spun instantly. He fired twice. 2 loud blasts echoed as crates splintered under the bullets. While he was distracted, I slipped silently off the platform and dashed toward the bag, grabbing it in one swift motion. He turned the moment he heard the movement. "There you are." I didn't look back. I ran toward the street where a thin glow of passing headlights hinted at life beyond this nightmare. The man's footsteps thundered after me, gaining ground. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but I kept running, clutching the bag with every ounce of strength. I burst onto the main road, waving at an approaching car. "Please stop!" The driver hit the brakes, tires screeching. But just as I reached the passenger door, a hand clamped around my arm with crushing force, dragging me backward. "You're not leaving," he hissed in my ear. "Not with that box. Not alive." And then, out of nowhere, another car sped toward us, its headlights blinding, aiming straight for the man holding me. The blinding headlights cut through the darkness like a razor. The man gripping my arm stiffened, instinctively dragging me toward him as if I were a shield. My scream caught in my throat. The oncoming car didn't slow. It came at us with terrifying speed, engine roaring, tires skidding across the uneven road. For a heartbeat, everything happened in impossible slow motion, the man's grip tightening, the sound of my own pounding pulse, the glow of the headlights swelling larger and larger, then a violent jolt. The man yanked me sideways, but not fast enough. The car clipped his shoulder with brutal force. His body spun, slamming hard onto the asphalt. He shouted in pain, the gun clattering out of his hand and skidding beneath a parked truck. I stumbled, fell to my knees, the bag tumbling but staying zipped. My breath trembled as I scrambled away from him. The car screeched to a stop. The door flew open, and a familiar voice shouted, "Get in, now!" It was the same young taxi driver who had dropped me off earlier. For a split second, disbelief froze me. Then instinct took over. I grabbed the bag and sprinted toward the cab. He leaned across the seat, flung the passenger door open, and I dove inside. The driver slammed the gas. The tires shrieked in protest as the car shot forward. Behind us, through the back window, I saw the injured man drag himself upright. His silhouette rose like something torn out of a nightmare. He stumbled toward his sedan with a limp but terrifying determination. "He's going to follow," I gasped. "Already doing it," the driver muttered, glancing into the rearview mirror. His jaw clenched. "Hold on." The black sedan roared to life, headlights flaring as it lunged onto the road behind us. The chase began. The night blurred into a swirl of streetlights, shadows, and adrenaline. The driver swerved sharply onto a side road, then another, racing through the industrial zone. His hands were steady on the wheel despite his breath coming fast. I knew something was wrong earlier. The way that car was idling, the way the driver stared at that building. I waited around the corner, just in case. "You saved my life," I whispered. "Not out of heroism," he replied. "I just didn't want to be the last person who saw you alive." A shiver ran through me, but there was no time to react because the sedan behind us suddenly jerked closer, gaining speed. "He's trying to ram us," the driver warned. The sedan swerved violently, its bumper grazing ours. Metal shrieked. My heart leapt into my throat as I clutched the bag tight against my chest. We turned a sharp corner, almost 2 wheels lifting off the ground. The driver gunned the engine, pushing the little taxi harder than it was ever meant to be driven. But the sedan kept coming. "He won't stop," I whispered. "No, he won't." We raced through another intersection, narrowly missing a delivery truck. The sedan followed without hesitation. "We need to get to people," the driver said, "somewhere open." "Go towards the hospital," I said immediately, breath shaking. "I can't be far from Thaddeus." He nodded and turned the wheel sharply. Behind us, the sedan's tires screeched, the vehicle swaying as it struggled to keep up. Just as we neared the main boulevard, traffic lights ahead, people visible in the distance, the sedan lunged forward one last time. A loud bang. The impact. Our taxi skidded sideways, spinning toward the curb. I screamed. The world became a blur of light and motion. We slammed to a stop, barely missing a lamppost. The engine hissed. The driver groaned. My heart pounded so violently I thought it might burst. But the worst part wasn't the crash. It was the sight of the black sedan's door opening. The man stepped out, limping, furious, and still armed. And as he raised the gun, aiming directly at me, a familiar voice behind him said, "Put it down, or I swear you won't take another step."
The man limped toward me, rage radiating from every step. His coat hung crooked where the car had struck him, but his grip on the gun was steady. Too steady. He raised it with cold intent, jaw clenched, breath hissing between his teeth. "This time," he snarled, "you're not getting away." My fingers tightened around the bag, my back pressed against the dented taxi door. I could barely breathe. The world narrowed down to the barrel of his gun and the echo of my own heartbeat. Then, a voice cut through the night, sharp as a blade. "Put the gun down," it commanded. "Now." The man froze. I turned my head slowly, hardly believing my eyes. Behind him stood a uniformed police officer, one I recognized instantly. The young district attorney's investigator. The same one who'd met us at the courthouse days earlier. He held his weapon drawn, stance firm, eyes locked on the man threatening me. "I said put it down," the officer barked again. The gunman smirked, a sick twist of confidence spreading across his bruised face. "You have no idea who I work for." "I know enough, and I know your network is collapsing. Half your people were arrested 3 hours ago. You're alone." The gunman's expression faltered for the first time. Alone. I saw the realization hit him like a strike to the ribs. His support was gone. His power was slipping. His orders were meaningless if there was no empire left to enforce them. The officer stepped forward, dropped the weapon, last warning. The man hesitated, rage warring with fear, before his arm finally slackened. The gun clattered to the pavement. The officer rushed forward, tackling him to the ground and cuffing him with swift precision. The moment the man was restrained, my legs gave out. I slid down against the taxi door, shaking uncontrollably. The officer jogged to my side. "Are you hurt?" "I know," I whispered, my voice trembling. "But he tried to kill me." "He won't get another chance," the officer said. "Backup is on the way. You're safe now." Safe. A word I hadn't felt in decades. Within minutes, police cars filled the street, lights flashing blue and red across the cracked asphalt. Paramedics approached the taxi driver, the brave young man who'd risk everything to save me, and helped him to his feet. He looked shaken, but alive. When they placed the gunman into the patrol car, his eyes met mine through the window, but there was no threat left, no venom, only defeat. Because the truth he tried to bury was sitting in my hands, the metal box. The officer noticed it. "Is that the evidence Thaddeus mentioned?" "Yes," I said, clutching it tightly. "Everything is inside." "Then let's get you somewhere secure." "No," I replied. "Take me to the hospital." His eyebrows lifted. "After what you just survived, you should rest." "I need to see him,"
I insisted. He nodded once. I'll drive you myself. The ride to the hospital felt unreal, like floating between two worlds. The world where I had lived in ignorance, and the world I was stepping into now, where the truth no longer hid behind shadows. When we arrived, the officer walked me directly to the ICU. My heart pounded as I approached Thaddeus's room. I pushed the door open. He was awake. Barely, but awake. His eyes locked onto mine the moment I entered. Weak as he was, relief washed over his face like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. He snarled, "I knew you'd come back." I rushed to his side, taking his fragile hand in mine. "It's over," I said. "They're arrested. The evidence is safe. And I'm safe." A tear slipped from the corner of his eye. "For the first time," he murmured, "I can breathe." I leaned closer. "You saved my life, Thaddeus. Now the world knows the truth." His fingers brushed the back of my hand. Then all the years I lost were worth something. I swallowed hard, emotion tightening my throat. They were worth everything. He closed his eyes, not from pain this time, but from peace. For the first time, since that terrible day he vanished, we were no longer hiding, no longer running, no longer suffering alone. We were free. And freedom, after so many years of silence, felt like the first breath after drowning. If today's story touched your heart or kept you hooked, you can show your love by sending a super thanks. Your support helps me continue creating more powerful life stories for you. Thank you, truly, for always being so kind and supportive. I can't wait to read your thoughts about this story. On your screen right now, you'll find 2 new stories that I highly recommend, filled with emotions, twists, and lessons. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe for many more inspiring life stories. Until the next one, sending you love, respect, and gratitude. See you in the next story.